Blessings and peace to you. This is SB Favor Thinking Podcast, and my name is SB Favor. How are you doing today? It is Saturday, October 23rd, 2021. Another wonderful day and another day to be thankful. And as I always say, if you focus on what is good, then you can project something good to happen. So make sure you focus on what is good. I hope everyone is having a good day. It's a sunny Saturday on the East Coast. I don't know about the West Coast, but it's sunny on the East Coast. And it's a good day. I have a special co-host here with me today. His name is Jody Odom Sr. I want to make sure I get that right. Jody Odom Sr. And before we start this episode, I would like to remind you listeners, if you would like to donate to the podcast, you can donate at $ at SB Favor at Cash App. I appreciate that so much. And make sure if you are out there traveling about, make sure you're keeping yourself safe and keeping your family members safe. We are still in the middle of a pandemic and we have to do our part to keep ourselves safe. Please do not let your guard down. People are still becoming ill. Please keep yourself safe and keep your family members safe. So, Jody Odom Sr., how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm blessed and highly favored. Good to be here. Good to be here.
Great. Thank you for just agreeing to sit and chat with me. This is your first time here. So, and I expect for you to come back again. And our topic is restoration, the focus to be restored. All of us have been through things in our life where we have made poor choices. We've been through situations and circumstances where we need to be restored from bad relationships, personal issues in our life. We can be restored. God is a God of restoration. And so we're going to talk about the focus to be restored and how to make life better. What things we need to do just to make life better. So, Jody, how's your Saturday going?
Saturday is pretty peaceful. It's pretty peaceful. Got some more running to do, but other than that, I'm just thankful just to be alive. Just thankful today.
That's a beautiful thing. Being thankful, it sets us up for more good things to come. Gratitude, the spirit of gratitude is an awesome thing. So let me ask you this: when you think of the word restored, what comes to your mind when you think of the word restoration or restored?
Good question. When I think of restored, I think of returning back to your original state, condition.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Restored means to repair, return to position, reinstate from previous effects. Yeah. So, Jody, tell me a little bit about yourself, because you told me you are an artist, and we had a brief conversation about some things you're going through in your life and how God has restored you. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and 5 of us, and my mom and my father. And during that time, it was, Chicago was a really decent place to live in some areas, but it was a tight-knit family. We had, it was tight-knit, but it was dysfunctional. I was, unfortunately, my mom was abused by my biological father. And it was during those times where I would use my art to escape, to draw. Like the ordinary child, we would go out there and play and everything, and before the street lights come on, we'd be back in the house. I was all during that time. After that, with my mom, she moved us from Chicago to Gary, and I attended a performing arts school.
Wow!
And there, I enhanced. My mom was, she once she knew what my talent was, she persuaded me to go to performing arts school. Enrolled me into art school, and during that time, I learned. I enhanced my understanding of art, the principles of art, and a number of great teachers that taught me how to draw and how to paint. and it broadened my horizon. I began to understand what my talent was, and enter into art exhibits, and so forth.
Awesome. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
you used art as a tool in your life to you said you use it as something to escape. And would you say that that was also something for you to be restored from something that was dysfunctional? Would you say that?
At that time, I didn't realize that,
Mm-hmm.
but when I would hear my mother and father argue and fight, I would just start sketching at times.
Wow.
And even as I got older, as a teen,
Mm-hmm.
I found myself being depressed, and I would start drawing. Even in school, I
Wow.
should be doing assignments. I would start drawing because that was my only window of saying or asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I would make imaginary heroes. I created my own heroes, scenes, stories,
Mm-hmm.
comics. But I was crying for help, and
Wow.
at that time, no one recognized that I was crying for help doing art.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to zoom into till today, but I now can see artists in their content, and I can discern or recognize they're crying for help or they're trying to speak a message.
Wow.
But during that time, I was just crying for help. And I remember when my mom got remarried, he was worse than unfortunately worse than my father.
Oh my God.
And I remember hearing the hits or hearing the noise coming from the basement, and I would begin to just draw and create my own imaginary people. Or I'll make copy a drawing, but I will begin to add more to the drawing. But
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to find a way to escape.
Wow. That is something else. And I must say to you, I commend you for talking about your experience, because I know that whenever we go through something that's traumatic, to be restored,
Right.
it's our victory. Because when you go through something in life, we are not defined by what we go through. We're defined by how we overcome what we have gone through. And Jody, you definitely are an overcomer. And tell me about that place of restoration, because you are a talented artist and you are definitely a gifted man. You know, my first conversation I had with you was a blessing, and that is why I wanted you here on the podcast, because when I listened to your voice the first few minutes, I knew I was talking to someone that was absolutely blessed. And so tell me about in that moment where you knew that God was working on your spirit and you saw life differently, pertaining to just being restored, because you have overcome some things. And I just want the listeners to understand that it's not about what you go through, it's about how you overcome
Yes.
what you have gone through. So tell me about that place of restoration.
Yes, absolutely. Because the Bible does say I believe it's Galatians 6, that he
Mm-hmm.
that is spiritual, if any man is overtaken in the fall,
Mm-hmm.
he that is spiritual, let him restore such a one with the spirit of meekness. And I
Yes.
remember what changed my life was when I moved to Youngstown. And well, not Youngstown, even Gary. Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
I began to surround myself with spiritual individuals. I was torn, depressed, and I'm beginning to walk, know about the Lord, and I also can say that I was sexually molested when I was 7, 8 years old, and that opened a door to perversion,
Wow.
and that spirit followed me, and I didn't understand as I was younger what's going on with me. Why is the spirit, why the spirit deal with the
Mm-hmm.
spirit?
Mm-hmm.
But I thank God, and as I begin to grow older, and somehow it's something about art and imagination, art and thought. I began to, like I said, once I paint or draw, I begin to see that, okay, God is in control of me.
Yes.
And I begin to see, as I'm painting, I begin to imagine myself not there, not in those places.
Wow.
Of depression, because depression also traveled in my family.
Right.
You withdraw, don't want to be around people, quiet, isolated. That traveled in my family. Some battled with mental depression, and some, almost lost their minds. But that followed me. But what broke it was spiritual individuals that tapped into my anointing, but also tapped into my weaknesses.
Right.
And I would go to them, and they had a prayer of deliverance, a prayer of restoration. And so I would surround myself. I call it a surround sound, like speakers. I surround myself with speakers that men and women,
right,
that spoke into me.
Awesome. That's awesome. To be restored in that type of way, we all have to do the work. And as
Right.
Jody mentioned, surround ourselves with people that can speak over our life. And first and foremost, we have to pray. One of my friends said to me, she said, SB, you talk about the thought life and you talk about different things pertaining to what's spiritual, but you don't use a lot of biblical scriptures on your podcast. And I said to her, God is the forefront of this podcast. But what I try to do is give people practical steps about how to do things. And so I brought that up because I want you listeners to understand that just as Jody is being restored from his past, we all can do the same. And we have to use practical steps to do it. And prayer is one thing. Being connected to the source of life, which is God. And secondly, doing the work every single day to be restored, to be reinstated from something that you're not. Because if you walk around defined by the things that happen to you, that's not healthy. You have to be defined by how to overcome the things that happen to you, because that's what restoration is all about. Being restored to the place that God wants you to be in. All of us have gone through different things in our life. And in those traumatic situations, we don't have to be defined by them, because Jody is not defined by his. And so, Jody, what would you say to a man right now that has gone through something similar to you? What would you say to him to get on track to be restored from his traumas?
What I would say to that my brother that's listening, God wants to restore. Number one, his desire is to restore you, and number two, God loves you. Number three, He has a plan for your restoration. He has a plan. Now, our job is to pray for the plan, the strategy, because it can be embodied in the person.
Yes.
Another man that has mentorship, that can disciple you into the right direction of God, that can impart some wisdom, some understanding, because you don't want that addiction to outgrow you. You don't want that addiction to become a giant, a monster. So where you are right now, you have to be courageous, and you have to fight, like SB said, and you have to pray.
Yes.
Pray, fight, get wisdom, get strategy, because deliverance is a strategy. Deliverance is a strategy. And most people only wish for or pray for deliverance, but never receive a strategy. It may be pray and fast, or get counsel. get understanding. But in you is the ability to be restored. So don't give up, brother. Don't give up. God has a plan. And don't just be stuck on the problem, but see the purpose. Right now, it's a problem, but get beyond the problem and get to purpose and promise. So that's what I would like to say to my brother that's listening.
Thank you for saying that. I always say on this podcast, project what is good, because I believe personally, Jody, that deliverance starts with how we think. I know some listeners probably wondering what we're talking about, deliverance. What do you mean deliverance? Because, in the black church, we use the word deliverance. In other churches, they use...
Right. Right. It's true.
They use other words. So we just want to make it plain. We're talking about healing, people. We're talking about deliverance is healing. Okay. Healing in the mind and the heart and the spirit. So to be healed, it starts with how we think. Because if you project what you want to be versus what the problem is, then the healing starts right there. And every single day, we have to think differently. We have to think healthy. We can't bask in, as I always said, we can't bask in the past. We can't bask in what happened to us. We have to bask in the goodness of the day, the goodness of what is happening before us, and the goodness, according to, like Jody said, the plan of God, what he has for us, the goodness of God. So we all can do better as we work on ourselves, whether it's a bad relationship, a bad marriage, a traumatic experience. We all can be restored. And that restoration starts with how we think.
Yes.
The mind is the control center. Sadly, sometimes people, Jody, they say, well, I'm just going to wait on God to help me. Guess what? You have the ability within yourself to help yourself because God has given you the tools. He's given you free will to take on the right thoughts. I was talking to my co-host on Wednesday. We were talking about the thought life, of course. And one of the things I said to her was that confidence, courage, and faith, and projecting what is good, to me, personally, those things are components to help you to press ahead away from your traumatic experiences. But the thoughts that you meditate on daily become you. Because as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So we all can be restored from the bad things that we've gone through. We all can make better choices. We all can do better every single day if we want to do better. Because we are not defined by our bad mistakes and traumas. We are defined by what we overcome.
Yeah.
So Tyler Perry also, Jody, he went through something similar to you, and where he was abused and his mother was going through things with her husband. And, he said the same thing. He imagined himself doing what he's doing now. He said he would write about all these different things and he would escape his traumas, and so he worked on himself, of course, and everything that he imagined, he manifested because he projected what was good about his life. Sometimes people become victims instead of victors in their situations. If something happened to you 20 years ago, I'm not saying what happened to you is not valid. But what I am saying, listeners, is that to be restored from your past and to be restored from a bad decision or choice, to be restored is to focus on now. What do you want now going forward? And it all starts with your thought life. What are you thinking about? What do you practice in your thought life daily? Are you projecting what is good? Are you meditating on what's good? Do you believe that good things can happen?
Right.
Because sometimes, Jody, people, people walk around saying, oh, well, I can't do this because that happened. That happened in 1980. That happened in 1990. And I've been through this and I've been through that. We all have gone through something. What you say, Jody? What you say?
I definitely believe that we all have gone through something. There's not a person in this world that's not been through nothing. And one thing I want to say is this too. Remember, I was saying how I use my art to escape.
Yes.
So now, fast forwarding to today, I have what's called a healing arts, art therapy.
Beautiful.
And so I have taught teens how to to express their thoughts on canvas, on piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
I had some. I mean, times when some talk about they paint about suicide thoughts, and depression is painted, oppression is painted. So what I did when I was a child, I'm teaching people today to express their thoughts of a way escape, but also now let's talk about it. So now when I'm teaching young people about, to express what's on their mind, then I give it to their counselor and say, okay, this is what they're going through. This is what they're going through here and there. So because of the thoughts travel.
Yes.
But if it can be expressed, then we can save someone, help somebody, and to help recover someone.
Well said. Well said. Well said, because when we talk about what we feel and what we go through, we get it out. We have to release it. That's very important. That's very important, because when we suppress what's going on, that's a whole nother problem. That's a whole nother problem. So yes, I totally agree with that. I have 5 steps that can help you listeners to stay in the place of restoration, or be in a place to be restored. First, like I said earlier, the most important thing is to pray, because God is the source of all life, and you want to be connected to God to receive help, because none of us were created to operate independently of God. And the minute you think that you can do everything on your own, that's the minute you will fall on your face, because at some point or another, you will need God in this life. I mean, that's just plain and simple. That's not religious. That's real. Because listeners, I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. Because sometimes when you mention God in different contexts, people be like, oh, I don't want to hear that religious stuff. But I'm going to tell you something. At some point or another, we all need God. But number one, the first step I would suggest to you listeners is be determined daily with the right attitude to stay in a place of restoration, or to be restored. Pray first. But the next one would be to be determined daily to stay in the right place mentally with the right attitude. Number 3 would be working on yourself. It must be a personal goal. It must be important enough for you to understand that you must work on yourself, because nobody can do that for you. We can't go through things in life and just stay in that position and just not want to change. So take account for your own self, and just make it a personal goal to just work on yourself. Number 4, stay focused daily and take account for your own actions without blame shifting others for your actions. The next one would be set goals, short-term goals and long-term goals for the results you want to see for yourself. And lastly, make a constant effort with actions to manifest the progress you want to see for yourself. Because we all have the ability to be restored from the things that we've gone through. You don't have to stay the same. You don't have to become something less because you made a bad decision. You don't have to become something less because you've been divorced or you've been in a bad relationship. You don't have to be less if you have made mistakes in your life. You can be more. You can be restored from all those things. And so I just want you listeners to be encouraged and inspired and motivated to do something different. So Jody, let me ask you this. You work with younger children, teenagers?
In time past, I have worked with children, junior high, to high schoolers.
Okay.
And God has really blessed me
Mm-hmm.
to really, to really work with them and understand.
Okay. That's awesome. So how was it when you worked with the junior high school kids? Because I know that it could be challenging because they got
It can
certain
be
attitudes.
challenging.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be challenging. And the thing is, their attention span is not always, is can be short. And if you got different personalities, you to really be creative on how you can project and to bring out, what you're trying to convey to them.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times when some could not stay in my class, but there were some that really gravitated to the art, and they wanted to help. They was thirsty to express themselves on canvas or whatever type of drawing, and those I could easily work with. But there are some that is just crying out, for attention,
Mm-hmm.
and art is a great medium
Mm-hmm.
for to express their thoughts.
Wow. That's something, we all have some type of creative ability that we can express ourselves, whether it be art, music, dance. Isn't that something how we all were created with creative abilities? That's beautiful, right?
Yes.
So restoration, we all can be restored, there's no reason to stay the same, and there's no reason to make an excuse to stay the same. We can do better. I'm going to give out those steps once again. Number 1 would be to pray. Number 2, be determined daily with the right attitude. And we're talking about restoration. These are the steps. I believe this is what has helped for me to be restored. Number 1 would be to pray. Number 2, be determined daily with the right attitude. Number 3, work on yourself and make it a personal goal. Number 4, take account for your actions without focusing on others to be distracted. We're supposed to be focused on what we're supposed to be doing for ourselves, to work on ourselves. Number 5, set goals, short-term goals and long-term goals to see the progression that you want to see within yourself. And number 6, make a conscious effort to manifest the results. Effort, it builds to something. When you take an effort to do something every day towards something you want to see, it starts building itself as you apply the effort every single day. Your personal goals, working on yourself, no matter what it is, when you apply the effort, it starts to build upon itself every single day, and it becomes the very thing you want it to become as you apply the effort every single day. So the place to be restored is something we all can experience, to have a better life, to have better relationships, to have better families. And as I stated earlier, listeners, we are not defined by our past mistakes and bad choices, but we are defined by what we overcome. So, Jody, thank you so much for taking the time out to chat with me today. Is there anything else you want to share?
Well, I'm just thankful. Thank you so much for allowing me to encourage the listeners to go on to improve yourself, to pray and to do great things, make better decisions. I thank God and thank you for the opportunity, and I just want everyone to take advantage, but also follow the steps that was given. Like I said, restoration is a process, but also a plan and
Yes.
the steps to restoration. So follow those steps that was provided to you, and I know there'll be great testimonies that many of you would like to share during the process. So please give a shout out to SB, and I'm pretty sure that it will be a blessing for others to know that these steps are great to follow.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time here, and I want you to come back again because, as I stated to you when I first talked to you, you have a lot to give out and a lot to offer. So I want you to come back and share again on this podcast. And listeners, I thank you for taking the time out to listen to SB Favorite Thinking Podcast. Please share the podcast with others. If you need to reach me, you can reach me at sbfavor@yahoo.com via email. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at sbfavor. I have a TikTok channel. I'm not dancing over there, but you can find inspirational content. I have a YouTube channel also. Please click like, subscribe to the channel, share the podcast with others, and make sure you click the bell so that you can receive a notification each time there's a new episode of SB Favorite Thinking Podcast. As I stated, please share the podcast with others. And if you would like to donate to this podcast, donations of any kind, please donate at Cash App, $SB Favor. Listeners, thank you so much. Share the podcast with others. You can do no wrong with that. Only good. You have a good day.